G'day, Seb Webb here from Webb Performance, and welcome to the Webb Performance Podcast. Each week, we will be discussing athletic development from a strength and conditioning perspective, getting insights from current athletes themselves, strength and rehab processes as well from practitioners such as physiotherapists, and much, much more. This week, we will be discussing vertical integration and how I like to actually utilize it within my programs for all my athletes. So, essentially what vertical integration is, it's just combining multiple quality types into training at once, as you can see with my lovely description here. And what this really means and how I like to view it as well is that we actually are allowed to hit all different types of training qualities at once. So there's a frequent stimulus, but we simply just prioritize different types of qualities over certain aspects. So from a team perspective, we might just go for simple block periodization, still having different types of qualities in our training, and we just got some basic examples here being strength, hypertrophy, power, speed and fitness. And for every single type of quality here, we can really go down a rabbit hole. But just for today, just getting an understanding of vertical integration, how it can work within your program, we're just going to keep it to these 5 basic qualities for today. And why I really like the vertical integration, as I said before, was that we can train all different qualities at once, but if we do prioritize a certain quality, we still have a frequent stimulus of other qualities that we may have actually previously put more emphasis on within our training, and they're not going to just simply go away. So when it comes to vertical integration and training, we're going to use team sports for an example here. So when it comes to utilizing that in vertical integration within a team sport, we have to determine what time of the year it is, whether it's the off-season, early pre-season, late pre-season, early season, mid-season, late season, finals period. So when it comes to actually determining what we need the most, we go off testing results, depicting what areas that need most attention, what areas we can actually improve on their strengths. And we also go off their sports demands as well. Remember, training's a bit more general and meets the individual's needs, their athletic needs, and then the sports needs afterwards, in my opinion. So, say if it's early off-season, we may focus on actually developing a bit more body composition work. So that can be hypertrophy. So that could be the priority as we go along. And alongside with that, it might be strength. Power is not as emphasized as heavy as hypertrophy and strength. Speed may be more of a maintenance or just a bit more of a tolerance, so not as emphasised as much. Where fitness, especially in most Australian team sports, is still a pretty heavy requirement, especially if we are making these body composition changes as well. It still probably need to be a heavy emphasis. So you can start to see here we can really prioritise what qualities we need the most. So simply, we're going to spend most of the energy and our time developing these 2 qualities here, just for an example. But then afterwards, you've got strength as a quality, power and speed. And that's just one way to look. Then another example we can do for team sports is early preseason phase 1. So that's where hypertrophy is still potentially going to be a pretty high quality that we want to focus on, just change that body composition, getting lots of reps and a bit more stress under the body. Then strength probably starts to increase a little bit. So they could be relatively even. This could still take a little bit more ownership, especially for the younger athletes coming through. They need a bit more time in the gym, build a bit more resilience to get their body compositions to match the older and wiser bodies at the elite level. But then again, power might be still relatively low. Speed, as much as I love speed, it might be a bit more building that tolerance. So pure speed of that top end level might not be as high. But fitness starts to increase a fair bit because when it comes to team sports in Australia, we utilise it a lot. So you can start to see here again, as we start shifting in the pre-season periods, we have more qualities that are a little bit more evenly spread out in terms of the emphasis of what we need to train. So therefore, our program needs to adapt. What do we need to prioritise the most? It comes back down to the sports demands, the individual needs, and the general adaptations first. So if it's a netball team, for an example, they're going to be super fit. They're actually going to be quite strong and resilient because the injury risk of netball is quite high. So these 2 qualities are a must. Then these 2 still need to be hit, but you probably want to emphasise on these 3 the most. Then you can see here again, our needs in the early preseason phase of phase 2 need to change again. So strength may become the most important source that we need to put our emphasis on, where hypertrophy or body composition may drop down a little bit. Then we can see that power might start to come up a little bit more as we're hitting a bit more of the central nervous system loading here, just for an example. Therefore, we can probably match it a little bit appropriately, of course, with power, then we might actually start to increase the demands of speed as we build a bit more of a base, and our fitness is still a really high component. As we go through the stages of pre-season, we can still have strength as a main contributor into that vertical integration, but you can see that the power effects are actually translating all the work you've done from hypertrophy to strength. The power starts to actually get expressed now. So we can actually utilize all the force capabilities we put here into this, but we still have that stimulus across the two. Then we might increase the speed qualities as well, because we have built that tolerance and we have still had that signal in our body throughout this whole program period. Therefore, we can increase the quality of that as well. And then when it comes to fitness, and again, you can go down all these different paths of specific types of training, but that's still quite a high requirement, again, because in team sports in Australia, that's going to be the biggest factor of you repeating efforts on game day. Then in the late pre-season periods, which goes into the season, you can see the emphasis on power and speed. Therefore, we're trying to actually really translate that real fast twitch, the explosive efforts that we developed throughout the entire preseason, but now it's the emphasis. Everything else is still going to be there, but it's just not going to be as emphasized as these. That's why the vertical integration is such a great tool, in my opinion, because we utilize all the different types of training qualities, and they're going to be signalized throughout your entire program, but we just simply emphasize which one's the most important. And when it comes to an individual's needs, you do your testing, you do your movement screen analysis, you try and meet your sport demands, your positional demands in your sport if it's a team sport. Then you just go off what you need here. Especially when it comes to an individual focused program as well. We can even emphasize more on the types of quality you have, because you have probably more one-on-one attention with your coach. So say for someone who's a really clean slate, that emerging type athlete, starting just to come out of the growth spurt periods, have had some stints with a strength and conditioning coach, play multiple sports in their life, strength is probably going to be the number one factor they need to improve to get super resilient, get that range of motion, because that's the best way to do it is through strength training. Get your tissues to be super tolerant, so when it comes to the higher levels, you're really robust and you can resist and adapt to those older, wiser bodies. But vertical integration just allows you to have all the different signals going on at once, but just emphasizing the particular type of training. That's why I love it so much. And when I do my own training, when I coach my athletes, my people, I like to have all these factors going on, so skills aren't lost. We can emphasize what we need and get the most out of their training, get the most out of their body to adapt to certain stimuli. And as you start to become a bit more advanced as an athlete, the greater the stress is required to get that adaptation response you would certainly get potentially just doing basic strength and hypertrophy movements when you're younger. So this is just an algorithm that you can play all year round with. You can play with these qualities all year round. You can split up your different qualities into certain things. There could be max speed, there could be acceleration, there could be change of direction just for speed, for an example. And when it comes to fitness, you've got your anaerobic pathways, and you've got your aerobic pathways, power, you've got speed, strength, peak power, strength, speed. There's so many different ways we can go about it, and that's where you can get really fancy and creative. But understand that vertical integration just allows you to actually really allows you to develop all qualities at once, but emphasize on that one quality, potentially two, that you need the most.